It is time for another trip down memory lane. Not our memories, but the memories of those who lived in ages gone by in County Clare, because it's our latest Clare History in Focus slot. And joining me once again is the one, the only local historian and author, Colm Liddy. Colm, good morning to you.
Good morning, Alan.
St. Patrick's Day firmly on the horizon, and that is very much the theme of what you're going to discuss this morning.
That's right. About St. Patrick, it has to be said that the lore is he never actually visited County Clare. He was in many parts of Ireland, but mostly it was the north, and in particular Armagh. That's the reason, indeed, that we still have Armagh, regarded as the primacy place, in Ireland for the Catholic Church. Nevertheless, there is one little spot in Clare, and today I'm going to almost guide you on we could call it a pilgrimage, or if you're not a believer, nonetheless, it's a place of huge, outstanding beauty and scenic that you really do need to see. It's in North Clare.
Okay, looking forward to hearing more about this. So take us on this St. Patrick's Day stroll.
What I would recommend is that you take yourself to Newquay, up at the very north of this county, and you'll find St. Patrick's Church is indeed the name of the church in Newquay. There's ample parking outside, so park there, go inside. The church is built in 1939, replacing a previous church that was there a century earlier. And right inside the door, you'll see a statue of St. Patrick. But what's really nice is inside there's a stained glass, beautiful one that's, I think, 130 years old. That was from the Skerritt family, the local landowners who were Catholics. And one of them, Patrick Skerritt, in honour of him, there's a stained glass of St. Patrick. Also inside, really quite arty, is their Stations of the Cross. Obviously you see them in every Catholic church in Ireland, but these ones are a little bit more than average. They were done by you could say bona fide artist, Sean O'Sullivan. He was quite a big deal in the early 20th century. Indeed, his portrait of Eamon de Valera is the one that sits in Áras an Uachtarán, and he did stamps. He did loads of different kind of, official commissions. But I don't know how they got him, but in 1940 he did the Stations of the Cross for Newquay Church. And they're really vivid, just really excellent representations of the story of Jesus' final day, I guess, of life. So worth checking out. Also, I suppose a sad kind of thing that's in that church is there's two commemorations of the 1969 drowning tragedy which took place locally, where 9 children were drowned not far from there.
Okay, nice that they're honoured in that way. And the stained glass windows, are they still in? I would imagine they're kept in good condition.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a fine church. It's amazing. Most of these churches have at least one little thing, but this one is a little gem that people would easily miss.
Okay, what else do you want to tell us, or where else are you going to take us on this?
So if you leave your car there in the car park and walk behind the church, and you'll find yourself on the beginning of what is known locally as the Green Road. So we're talking about a famine-era road built during the famine and never tarmacked. So it's about a 3.5 kilometre walk up a hill into, this is one of the, Burren Hills. This one was called Abbey Hill, and you kind of are walking along the shoulder of it, if you can imagine, around a corner, and suddenly you just have this amazingly vast vista in front of you. Galway Bay, of course, the island of Auchinish, all along the coast. You can see Barna and out towards Spiddle. You can see the Martello Tower. There's just so much in front of you there, and it's quite a view. As you walk along, you can, I suppose, contemplate the fact that you're walking on a road built by famine labourers in around, 1846, 47. I suppose we have a tendency to think that it was like working, hard labour, but actually people did welcome it at the time. You read the newspaper, and the day that the engineer who was going to run it, arrived in Ballyvaughan, his name was Mr. James Pratt. There was bonfires all over the area of delight that someone was coming to give them work. Because, at the time, they could not really conceive of something for nothing.
Yeah.
They wanted work. to give them money to buy the food they needed. And they got it. Is the road useful? You'd have to say not really.
But it gave them money.
It gave them money. You could say that it connects Newquay Church to a village that no longer exists. It's called Curran-Roo, just over the border in Galway. There was a village there. There was a post office. There was a thriving oyster industry. All that's gone. So if you like, from the A to B no longer exists. And that's why now you have this road that appears to not really have a purpose, but it's a fantastic place for any tourist or walker to go.
What about St. Patrick's Well?
So if you walk along it, anyway, from, as I've said, down to the far end, you will find just off of it, about maybe 50 metres from the road, St. Patrick's Well. So as I remarked, St. Patrick never came to Clare. But the thing is, right here where I'm describing, you are just a few hundred metres from Galway. Patrick did go to Galway, and he was in South Galway. And here is a place, like so much with these holy wells, they exist often at borders between tribes. Because a well, first of all, you could argue it's the most authentic form of Christianity in Ireland, is the holy wells. Much more so than churches, which were really, for most of history, just for an elite. The churches of Ireland in medieval times, they wouldn't have fitted the people, and mass going as such was not a major thing. But going to holy wells always was. And that's why you have a connection here to the really long ago Christian past of Ireland, and arguably to even further back again, the era of Druids. Because Druids and all of their activities took place at wells, and you generally found that they took place at borders between one tribe and another. And here's where the land of the Kirk of Madru, who were in charge of the Burren, that's where their land ends, and the South Galway boys are there. So it's a place where people have been going for, well, at the very least, 1,500 years, and arguably all the way back to the Bronze Age, quite possibly.
Okay, so long links going back, and lots of memorials as well.
That's right. You're aware there that you're in a place that literally tens of thousands of people have come and gone. A few of them are remembered on that spot. Most notably, out in the field from the well itself has little gewgaws of St. Patrick and rosary beads that people have left behind, and little notes, prayers and intentions. But out on the field, there's this bizarre kind of square slab of rock built. You could call it an altar, but it has strange writing on it. It's hard to decipher, and yet, you can clearly see its writing. And it has a little moon man, they call it, a sort of a figure of a man's face. Quite striking, that's there. And it has been deciphered anyway that the whole thing is in honour of John Comyn and Mary McNamara, a couple that lived in around 1760, set up by their son. That's what the writing says. Also, at the actual well itself, there's a tiny little copper plaque, and it says it's in memory of Matthew C. Mescal, who died in Ireland on the 3rd of August 1958. You Google a bit and you figure out this is a guy who essentially his grandfather had emigrated from Doonbeg back in the famine era, and now he goes back, an American, a Yank, to see his ancestors. He appears to have come to Ireland 3 times actually, and but only on the 3rd occasion he died.
Oh, 3rd time unlucky for this poor chap.
He dies in Ireland, and then they leave this little plaque there. Even further connection with, I mentioned Doonbeg, but this Matthew Mescal is a major Republican, I'm talking about Republican as in the American context. Okay. And indeed, Doonbeg, as you know now, has a connection with the Republican, a very prominent one.
The question marks remain over how Republican he actually is. Do we know anything about how Matthew died?
No, well, it appears a heart attack. Yeah, okay. You can actually look up his death cert. Yeah, so just a heart attack. But I guess he was where he belonged to be, back in the home country, which is nice.
I suppose he just hadn't planned for it to be like that. Any other memorials?
The ones I'm talking about are easily visible to anyone. Now we're getting into the ones that are both difficult to see and quite mysterious. What you need to do if you're really interested, and this is now the more hardcore people who want to get into the history.
I'm sure I can't be the only one, Colm, who's picturing you just digging through brambles and bushes and to get to these.
Something I have done several times this year. Yes, so that you don't have to. Now, what you're going to need for this one, you probably need wellies. You do, because you're going to need to get into the well. And depending on the state and level of the water, you might get wet.
Have you done this?
Of course I have.
Of course you have. Ask a silly question.
In fact, I've other plans. Some of the writing I'm going to describe now is stuff etching on a rock, and it's quite hard to read. Some of it's easy and some of it's hard. But some of it I have conceived could be better read if I went there some night at midnight and shone a torch on it. Because, you see, there's certain etchings that they come up better in darkness.
They just don't stand out during the daylight.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, some night, if any of the local inhabitants see a man with a torch,
don't call the guards.
Please understand that it's for science.
As he said, he's putting in the hard yard so we don't have to.
Anyway, I'll tell you what you can see. If you get in there with your wellies and look at that certain stone which is inside in it, first of all, there's another of these strange enigmatic faces. It's smaller than the other one, the Moon Man. They call it the Sun Man, but it's similar. You have one some of these have been chiselled out. Huge effort went into them because they're visible a long time. One says, M. Byrne, 1916 AD, Kinvara. And then the last word is contested. Somebody else told me it says R.I.P. I think it says R.I.C.
Oh, and given the year that's in it.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And maybe not widely known, slight diversion, outside of Dublin during Easter week 1916, the rising only took place in one other place outside of Dublin, really, the GPO, and that is Kinvara.
I think you're onto something
Okay,
here.
But anyway, let's park that because the other one fascinates me even more. What's super clear, and it's a beautiful image, is somebody has gone to the bother of chiselling out a little logo. And what it is it's a harp. And then the harp is embroidered with shamrocks. And then around the harp, the three sides of it says, God Save Ireland. Now that plus another bit where it says Williamson, August 1867, puts us very clearly that this is Fenian. This is the year of the Fenians, big time, 1867, and that particular concept, God Save Ireland. Eventually they wrote a song about it. So what is this? I mean, I've read that much online. A local guy up there, Tony Kirby, he does walking tours around the Burren. He put up a lot of very interesting stuff on this online. But I think I have dug a bit more and am prepared to say that this Williamson is a very specific fella, because 1 year later a Williamson was tried in a London court for various sort of Fenian conspiracising, and if it's my same guy, it would add up, because what this guy was accused of was that in Ireland he was looking to get stores of gunpowder from military installations, to steal some for the purposes. At that era, the Fenians, they tried to explode various places in London. Some of them then wound up getting hung. The Manchester Martyrs, people might have heard of them. There's a major statue in Ennis, indeed, to them. But anyway, back to our man. He's accused of basically scouting for major supplies of gunpowder. Well, lo and behold, if you were standing at that holy well, right in front of you, across the fields, is the Auchinish Martello Tower, which at that time would have had quite a bit of gunpowder. And around the corner is the Finnevara one. So I can think of no better place where you could pretend you were being all religious, and meanwhile what you're actually doing is watching troop movements back and forth, because those towers, of course, were still very much active at that time.
I think we're going to have to start calling Colm local historian, author and local sleuth.
Possibly. Or maybe conspiracy theorist. I don't know.
I don't see any tinfoil hats in this studio.
But anyways, I haven't proven any of this yet, but as I say, I'm on the case and piecing together little bits of it. But I definitely have to go up there at midnight some night anyway to look at the etchings more clearly in the darkness.
But it just shows you, Colm, and I think it's why history, and particularly local history, is so fascinating, that if you put in the hard yards, as you clearly do and have done many times in the past, you find these little nuggets that they're not the big stories of years gone by that people will be aware of, but they're no less fascinating, and it must be great for you when you uncover them.
Yeah, I love that. We'll say there's a certain amount. I mean, it has to be said, everything I ever say here, a hell of a lot of it is I'm just regurgitating stuff that is well known. I'm just kind of putting it all together, you know.
Apart from when you pull your wellies on and jump into wells.
But then there's these extra other bits that I'm digging up out of the ground practically. So look, that's the end that I could say about that well. If you stroll back along the Green Road to your car, you should contemplate the fact that one famous person who definitely walked along it is William Butler Yeats. William, of course, well known for his poetry, not so well known for his plays, for the very good reason that they're terrible. But he did write a play called The Dreaming of Old Bones, and that is set literally on that roadway. A one-act play, not particularly good, but as I say, of interest. And then when you get back to your car, might I recommend a trip just around the corner. The other side of that same mountain is where you'll find Corcomroe Abbey. Always a great spot to look at. Fantastic old ruin from around 1200 and filled with some very interesting statuary inside. There's a weird looking bishop up on the wall. He looks like an alien, to be honest.
Maybe he is.
But he's pretty cool, and there's an old O'Brien warrior lying on the ground as well, in cast in stone. Also nearby is a chocolate factory. As far as I'm aware, this chocolate factory does not run on the slave labour of Oompa Loompas. So it's perfectly safe. There's Blenan's pub and restaurant, fine eatery, and there's an ice cream place called Lanala. I also recommend in Finnevara a vegetable shop run by Honesty Box, where you can just get fantastic vegetables, potatoes, carrots, the works. So yeah, great little spot for a little pilgrimage.
Brilliant. And if you return to your car and you've done some or all of what Colm has clearly gotten up to in the past, make sure you have a change of clothes and a clean pair of runners in the car to get into once you arrive back. Colm Liddy, thank you as ever. Fascinating St. Patrick's Day stroll there. For people who want to check out your merch, how can they do so?
It's at shopinireland.ie.